Welcome back to Life with the Spectrum. I'm your host, Gina Cavalli. And while we've had special needs attorneys on before, it's important to bring them back on every so often because, tax laws change, regulations change, and you need a plan in place to protect those that you love. So please welcome to the show with me today, Sarah Watchko with Hill and Watchko Associates. She's an attorney for special needs and elder law. Hi, Sarah. How you doing?
Hey, Gina, I'm doing great. Thank you.
So many parents are ill prepared when it comes to, leaving early. Why do people need trusts and wills?
The importance of a trust is making sure that we have some control over how assets are distributed to certain beneficiaries. For example, my kids are young. They're 7 and 9 years old. So God forbid something happened to me, I wouldn't expect them to be able to manage an inheritance.
Sure.
A trust is a tool where we can name someone else to do that for them until they reach a certain age. Maybe I don't even want them to have control at 18. Maybe 30 is the age I'm comfortable with. So my brother, for example, can be named as the trustee and manage this trust for the benefit of my children.
And there's 3 different types of trusts, right? Care to share what those are?
There's lots of different types of trust, but when we're talking about the special needs folks, some different rules apply. So in the special needs situation, not only might we want someone to be in control of these assets for the benefit of our children, we also don't want the assets to count against them and interfere with eligibility for government benefits like Medicaid, waiver programs, SSI.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a special needs trust that is a type of trust that meets certain requirements so that, again, one, someone can be in charge of that money for the benefit of the child, but it also won't be counted as theirs for purposes of getting eligibility for those benefits.
Seems like there's a lot of layers to that particular trust. And then what are some of the other ones that are out there?
So in the special needs trust world, we have several different categories. One is a third-party trust. So that's a trust where I'm planning for someone else, my child, for example, with my money. So my assets, my home, I'm going to set up a third-party special needs trust so that if something happens to me, my assets are protected for my child. There are other scenarios where a special needs individual may come into their own assets, like if they inherited money outright from grandma or grandpa, or if there was an accident or a malpractice case and there's a personal injury settlement. In those cases, we're planning with the beneficiaries technically their own money, and that's where we are in a first party special needs trust situation. So first party is I'm planning with my own money, third party is it's someone else's money.
And then what was the other one that you had mentioned? There's a third one, didn't you say?
So there's a pooled special needs trust, which is kind of a combination of all of these. In a pooled special needs trust, there's actually an organization, a nonprofit organization that manages these in little sub-accounts for each beneficiary. So instead of setting up my own trust, and that might be expensive, I might not have someone I know who can serve as trustee, I can go to one of these organizations and say, I want to set up a pooled trust account, and it's a really efficient way to get a special needs trust set up and a professional managing it.
When we get back with Sarah Watchko, we're going to find out about these tax law changes, regulatory changes that you also need to know about coming up. Stay with me.
It can be hard to find a sitter you can trust, even more so if your child has special needs, autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome. As parents, we have to protect our children. My Special Sitter has you covered, in-home or on the go. When you need a sitter you can trust, respite is just a click away at myspecialsitter.org.
Welcome back to Life with the Spectrum. I'm your host, Gina Cavalli. With me today, attorney Sarah Watchko. She's an attorney with special needs and elder law at Hill and Watchko. Now, tell me, how often should people kind of update their wills and trusts? Because, tax laws change, regulations change, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. Kind of our marching orders when a client leaves our office or family leaves our office is definitely take a look. Put your eyes on your documents probably every three to 5 years at least. In my documents, I have certain people named to take over if I can't manage or if I pass away. These are the sorts of things that might change through the years. If I have parents named to help out, they might be aging and it might not be appropriate to have them named anymore. And this is not the type of thing that we think about day in and day out, so it's easy to forget. If there are big changes in our practice, we'll send a letter. There's been a big change in the regulations regarding how trusts should be set up or tax laws that impact what you're doing. So often we'll reach out to our client base. But if you don't have anyone doing that, then having someone take a look, again, every 3 to 5 years, I think is really great practice.
Is there anything that's changed here in 2024 that people should know about?
We don't have anything in 2024, but we've got a lot of big changes coming up in the federal estate tax laws in the years to come. So the federal estate tax laws include an exemption where if you have a certain amount of assets, you don't have to worry about the estate tax unless you're over that amount. And it's scheduled to go down in 2026. So where right now only our, what we call our uber wealthy families are even exposed to the estate tax, when it comes down, that might affect more people. So that's a good example of what I've learned in my practice is that Congress is always doing new things. We have new administrations come into place. They keep us on our toes. There's always something changing.
What I liked, Sarah, is when I met you, you gave me a special needs planning handbook. And one of the things inside of it, towards the very end, was a letter of intent and what that looked like. And you put in here, it's kind of like a living document. So this is not a trust. This is not a will. But is this something that people can update on their own? Let's say, for instance, they can't get to you right away, but like, oh, geez, I need to go ahead and put in some personal preferences because Billy likes XYZ or Billy, explain that letter of intent just so people know. It's not a living will. It's not a trust. Right. It's just the letter of intent.
Absolutely. So if you look at the special needs trust document, it might say something like, use these assets for Billy's supplemental needs, make sure he's comfortable and safe and healthy, and that's kind of it. It's not all that particular because we want it to be broad. We don't want it to narrow it down too much. But I tell parents, think about all of the information that's in your brain that no one else knows about your child. We need to download that because if something happens to you tomorrow, no one's going to know that information. So it can be as simple as, what are Billy's favorite foods? To, as technical as what other individuals are involved in his care, who are his healthcare providers, who are his therapy providers, preferences, as comprehensive as possible as we can be to get that download from mom or dad's brain and put it on paper. And it's like you said, it's not a legal document. It's just there to be a guide and to help anyone involved on the legal side.
I love that. I think everybody should have a letter of intent with or without the will and trust, but that is most important. And I'm going to ask you when we come up, Sarah, what every parent wants to know, and that's the cost. Stay with me.
At Atlanta Swim Academy, we offer a free baby splash class, ages 3 to 5 months, for amazing parent-child bonding, socialization, water acclimation, and cognitive development opportunity. We are the Atlanta Swim Academy.
Welcome back to Life with the Spectrum. I'm your host, Gina Cavalli. With me today, Sarah Watchko of Hill & Watchko Associates. Now, you are an attorney with special needs and elder law, and I know that everybody wants to know how much. And I know it's not a one basic plan price for like, hey, this is your will over here, because there's several different layers to that onion. But can you give us a price range, Sarah, so that people aren't caught off guard and gulp when they come to sit down with you?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that in this practice area, we've really transitioned from an hourly billing model to a flat fee or package type model. And I feel like not all estate planning and special needs attorneys, elder law attorneys have done that, but I definitely have seen a trend. So essentially, based on whatever the components of a plan are, and the sophistication required to get us there, then that's what the flat fee is going to be based on. So in our practice, it's very common to have a plan that's going to be a $2,000 or $3,000 plan, and it's not unheard of to have a $6,000 plan. It all depends on what components and how many different components we're putting together. If we want to do a third-party trust and a first-party trust, and we're also updating wills, when there's more layers involved, that's when you'll see fees tend to be on the higher range. What we want people to know, even before they walk in the door, but definitely when they walk out from that first consultation, is exactly what it's going to cost. Transparency, we think, is really helpful and important, and it just helps people feel comfortable.
And I think, too, a lot of parents with special needs kids or young adults, if they're first getting started, all of our money goes to our kids, right? So it's good to know that, this is somewhat affordable and most important, needed. Like, at the end of the day, price is everything to a family, but also the fact that they need something like this to ensure the safety. And, I mentioned it was told to me that sometimes it's not the best to have the person who is watching your child also be over the money of your child. Is that true in your experience?
Yeah, I see a lot of both. And sometimes the situation is, look, we only have one person. We've got one person in our family who we trust, and we need them to be both. And that's okay. You can do that. The challenge is there's really no one looking over their shoulder. Trust is a private document. And if you just have one beneficiary and your beneficiary is a minor, has special needs, they may not even be aware that there's a trust for them. So when you can kind of separate church and state, so to speak, then you can have one person who's in control, the guardian, who's in control of making sure a child's taken care of, and someone else serving as the trustee, handling the finances, and you have a little more of a check and balance situation there.
Would you recommend that too for most of your clients?
I think that that's wonderful if people have the appropriate number of people to serve. Another option that some families will go to is a professional trustee. So there are trust companies, and there are certain trust companies who really focus on special needs trusts, which is a whole other ballgame in terms of trust administration, because you have to understand benefits eligibility. You have to understand how SSI works. You need to understand how Medicaid programs work. So a professional trustee can be another option.
I didn't even know that existed. Do you find those like at the bank, or is there a company called like professional trustee? Like,
banks do it. Most financial institutions have that wing, if you will. Not many of them do special needs trusts. So there are companies, one is Cumberland Trust Company, Advocacy Trust Company, Southeastern Trust Company. This is all they do.
Wow.
They serve as trustees.
I didn't even know that was a thing. I mean, because that is really important, because I think everybody starts out with the best intentions, right? You leave your guardianship of your child to your brother or your sister, and, you also have a lot of money, and you hope that your brother and sister spend that money on your special needs child, but then all of a sudden things go awry because, hey, they get a taste of that money and they're like, oh, well, we need a trip to Bora Bora. And then
let's all go to Disney World. All 20 of us.
All 20 of us. That's right. Sarah, what a wealth of information. How can people find you?
Wonderful. Yes, we have a website, www.estatelawga.com. And a telephone number, 770-475-8041.
Is there a cost to come in and have a consultation with you?
We do a complimentary call if people have just kind of general questions that they want to answer, like what's the process? What do you do again? Can I hear your voice? Are you a real person? We're always glad to do that. If people do come in for a full initial planning consultation, we have a fee of $350 for a 90-minute time block where we really get in down and dirty and start doing some planning and strategizing.
I love this. Sarah Watchko from Hill & Watchko Associates, thank you so much for being on the show again, Sarah.
Appreciate it, Gina. Thanks for having me on.
There are a lot of lawyers out there, and there are some like Hill & Watchko that specialize in special needs. So you want to make sure that you find a lawyer that checks all of your boxes to make the right decisions for when you depart this planet, that your loved ones are being taken care of. Thank you so much for checking out Life with the Spectrum. Every week we bring amazing guests that are truly making a difference in the worlds of special needs. And so if there's somebody making a difference where you live, please comment below or send me an email at gcast.com. I would love to reach out to them and maybe book them for a future episode. As we continue to live this crazy journey called life, I do truly appreciate you checking out Life with the Spectrum. Till next time, see ya.
Bye.